Pretty good to go, Mark?
All good to go.
Alrighty. So, again, my name is Joseph Vertido, Data Quality Analyst, Melissa Data, and today we're actually going to talk about data quality services. Now, a lot of you may have heard about data quality services already. Some of you might already be users, or some aren't even aware of what data quality services is. So we'll try to go and try to cover as much as we can in the time that we have about data quality services. And again, I'm going to really try and approach it from a standpoint where Microsoft is actually coming from when it comes to data quality. And as you can see here, we'll talk about what knowledge bases are, knowledge discovery, domain management, and of course, third-party reference data sets. But before we begin, I'd actually like to share you. I'd like to talk about data quality a little bit. And first and foremost, I'd like to introduce to you what I'd like to call the data quality theorem. And the first part of the data quality theorem states that as long as you collect information, you have data. And this is precisely what the definition of data is. Data is quite simply a collection of information. Now, what follows that is, as long as you're collecting data, as long as you have some form of data, you're also probably going to be required to do something with that data later on. Whether you're going to do some form of business intelligence or reporting, or later on do some direct marketing, whatever it is, that data is not being collected for no reason. Of course, there's a reason that we have this data, and we're probably going to be using it for something later on. And the number 3 part of our theorem actually states that as long as you're required to do something with the data that you're collecting, then you will most likely run into data quality issues. Now, you guys as DBAs, and I'm sure everyone here has actually worked with some form of data in the past, you know for a fact that this is true. If not, then maybe we can have a chat later on. But in any case, that's the data quality theorem, and let's actually define what data quality is. Data quality, in a sense, means that your data is correct, and what I mean by correct is that the information that you have is accurate and valid. When we talk about phone numbers, for example, you want to make sure that 800 and then zeros afterwards is actually a correct phone number. If not, then we can't consider it as correct, of course. And then we want to make sure that our data is also compliant, which means that formatting is consistent throughout our data sets, and then our standards follow the industry standards. For example, if we're trying to provide names for states, of course you can have an abbreviated version like Cali or California versus CA, which is the 2-digit abbreviation. Whatever it is, we want to keep it standard throughout our entire data set. And of course, everything needs to be consolidated, a single accurate representation of the truth, which is quite often referred to as the golden record. We want to make sure that records such as, or fuzzy records like Joe Vertido or Joseph Vertido are caught in the database and that they're, flagged as duplicates. We also want to make sure that the data is complete. So sometimes we have gaps and holes in our database, and we want to enrich our data as much as possible and fill in those missing information. For example, you can have an address. Some of them have zip codes, some of them don't have zip codes, and we want to be able to make sure that we address all of that. But in a sense, just trying to encapsulate all of these definitions, and what it really boils down to in the end is that having good data quality means having workable data. If the data that we have, that we're collecting, and that we're required to do with later on isn't workable and is not giving us the right results, then that's not considered as having good data quality. So in a sense, data quality just means having good and workable data. So data quality services, let's talk about it, just an introduction. DQS was really made to be KB or knowledge base driven. And knowledge base is really what others might be more familiar to. It's similar to what we call reference data. So it's not just based off of a programming language or some algorithms or some regular expressions. It's actually database driven. So this is what we call as knowledge base. And DQS has the capabilities to, of course, cleanse the data, validate it, and then also dedupe. So it has matching capabilities. And the really nice thing about the KB, the knowledge base, is that it has the ability to learn. So over time, your knowledge just becomes better and better. The more that you feed it, the more information. And then Microsoft came out with this new word called the data stewards, and really it's all about being able to empower the business users. And what I mean by this is that, the data quality routines does not necessarily need to be stuck with us, DBAs or programmers and whatnot. We can actually push that down the chain and empower more of the other subject matter experts or business analysts out there, and they could actually provide some help when it comes to data quality, because DQS is completely GUI-based, and there's absolutely or almost no programming necessary. It's very, very easy to use. And the good thing is that it's structured similar to SQL Server, where you have you can have multiple clients working on a single server. So that's kind of the architecture that it also follows. You can have a single data quality client or single data quality server, and you can have multiple people, multiple clients accessing that same server, doing different projects for the same database. And last but certainly not the least, it can also integrate with third-party reference data sets. And this is really where we'll see the power of DQS later on in the presentation. So I'd like to share a quote with you before we do any examples, and it says that quality data is not a luxury, and really I think this summarizes for me the entire data quality process. And this is a quote from Peter Benson, the Executive Director of ECMA. Quality data is not a luxury, it is an operational, regulatory, and statutory requirement. So if we want to be able to have good data quality, consistently good quality data, then we have to keep working on it. And this is exactly what we see in the DQS process. I've taken this from Microsoft website, and they basically introduced DQS as it's a process, it's a cycle, it's a repeating cycle. So it begins with, of course, first and foremost, having a knowledge base, and then actually being able to cleanse the data, and then exporting the data, the cleansed data file. And then over time, we have to keep training our KB. So if we get a new data set, we have to keep feeding it the information so that it becomes smarter and smarter every time. So it's a repeated cycle where the more time and information that you invest in your data quality process, the better the quality of your data becomes over time. So let's go through an actual demo of setting up a data quality project within DQS. I've actually opened up my virtual machine here. Let's minimize all that. So when you install SQL Server 2012, it comes with DQS. So I've already have SQL Server installed here, and you have the option to install data quality services. And basically, you open up your client, you set up your server, and then in order to connect to the server, you need your client. This is where all the work kind of takes place. So I already have my client opened up here. Let's close this project. Okay, so when you open up the client, it looks like this, and you've got three main interfaces. Of course, you have your knowledge base management area right here, where you can create knowledge bases or learn new things. And then this is where you actually create your the projects itself. And then, of course, you have some configurations. And the nice thing about DQS is it has its own, similar to like a change data capture capability where it monitors your activity. So anyway, let's just go ahead and jump right through it. I want to be able to create a new data quality project. But before I show you this, actually, I want to show you some of the KBs that I have. So knowledge bases, again, these are our reference data sets of good data that we want to refer to. Out of the box, Microsoft offers its own set of reference data, and I have that clicked right here, DQS data. This is out of the box. Microsoft provides you with, a bunch of countries and regions. They also provide you with county information in the U.S., state, two-letter leading states, even last names. But if we actually click on domain management and click on next, I want to kind of show you what the data looks like, just as an example. All right. If we click on country and region, for example, and we click on reference data, or not reference data, domain values, we can see that it has all of our countries, and what we have here, for example, you've got, Albania, for example. Albania can be represented as, the 3-digit country code 008 or the 2-digit country abbreviation AL or ALB or Republic of Albania. So this is somewhat just showing you an example of how our KB looks like and how it kind of works. So if, for example, we get an AL value, then it knows that AL and Albania is actually the same. And of course, we have some other things here like last names and so on. So what we're actually going to do for this example is we're going to do a country standardization. So let's take a look at how we'll do that based on the KB that we already have. So let's cancel this. And then let's just go ahead and create a new data quality project. And I'm going to name it country cleansing. Right? And then it asks me which knowledge base I want to use. So I want to actually use the out-of-the-box Microsoft KB. And then you could specify whether you want to do cleansing or matching. I haven't actually set any matching rules, so it's not letting me do that. So let's just go ahead and do a cleansing example here. All right, so next thing to do is just select the data that you want to cleanse. You could select SQL Server or Excel file right now, but I'm almost sure Microsoft will be releasing, more data sources later on. And then I'm just going to go ahead and select my data here. And then what you want to do is you want to map in the field to the domain. And again, we're cleansing country, so I've selected my column for country in my database, and then I'm going to map that to my country domain in my KB, and that's pretty much it. Click on next, and then we just start to process it. It's now trying to find all my countries, and it automatically just tries to clean it for me. So let's see how well it does that. I'm going to take a few seconds here. I've got a really slow VM. Should be about done. Okay. So here we can see some profiling information. DQS has built-in profiling statistics after you process your data. So you can get information like how many corrected values were there, how many suggestions do we have, and we'll see these values in just a second here. Of course, you've got completeness, how many blanks were there in our countries, and then how many were actually invalid. So these are really nice profiling statistics that Microsoft provides. And if we click next, then we can actually see the data itself. So we've got some suggestions here. I've got in my data value rep of Korea, and basically, it wasn't quite sure whether to make the change or not. It was only 73% confident. And the thing is, I wasn't able to show you, but in your configuration, you could set your thresholds. So if you set it at a certain percentage, it will only, it won't automatically correct those ones that fall below that threshold that you set. So it gives you suggestions instead, but it was smart enough to kind of know that rep of Korea is actually just Korea, and we've got Vietnam, 2 words. And then it actually kind of knows that it's also Vietnam, but it wasn't quite there. If we wanted to, approve these changes, we could certainly just click on approve, and that automatically tells the system that to make that correction. So that's fine. We can make those. We got new values. I've got some that are not actually countries. We've got a California there, so we want to reject that. And then we also have DOM rep. Now, I actually want to change this to Dominican Republic. Now, I wasn't able to catch that, but the good thing is if we have values that it wasn't able to clean, then we could actually manually go in there and type in the correct results. So we could put in Dominican Republic, which is the supposed value for DOM rep, and then UK should be United Kingdom. I believe the reason why UK didn't get caught is because it's, I think the abbreviated terms is more, it's Great Britain is used, I believe. In any case, and then we could, I should have actually clicked on approve. After I did that correct too, we could approve that now. That's part of our output database, and then we can click on invalid. Yeah, blanks are invalid, and California is invalid. So those are all good. Here are all my corrected values now, and then here are all the correct values to begin with. These are my perfect information, so nothing wrong there. And if we click on next, we could actually now output the information that we have. So we've got our countries. It tells me the original country information that I got, the corrected output, and the reason for the correction. So really, really nice and easy way for you to clean your data. So we could actually output as a SQL Server file, a CSV file, or an Excel file. We can output that in our SQL Server, and then we can name it country cleansed. And then we could export that. And if we go to our database here, do a refresh, and here we go. We've got our cleansed data. It's nice because it puts the source and the output side by side, so you can kind of see the corrections that were made and refer to it later on and whatnot. So, really good stuff. So yeah, a really fast and quick example of how DQS works using the out-of-the-box KB that Microsoft provides. If, say, for example, we wanted to create our own knowledge base, I want to show you this real quickly before we move on. Say, for example, we didn't have any information about countries, and which would be the case if, for example, you're working with other types of information like product IDs or customer IDs and whatnot. So we could actually create our own knowledge base, and we're going to create it from scratch. So we're going to click on knowledge discovery here instead of domain management. I'm going to click on next. So we'll just go ahead and discover that data that we have. We're selecting the country domain, but our KB is blank, so it doesn't have any domains in the KB. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new domain called country. Press OK. And from there, it'll just profile my data and start to learn new things about my data. Okay, so it tells me that there are 26 new values that it found. Let's just go in there and take a look at them, see which ones are good, which ones are bad. So we know that Australia and Australia with a double A are this is a misspelling, we know that. One thing we can do is we can click both of these, and then we can set them as synonyms. Now synonyms is, by the definition of it, it means they're one and the same. So if we click on synonyms, it will tell me that, Australia with a double A will be corrected to Australia, and it's smart enough to know that now. CAN, of course, we could set that to invalid, and then we could say that it should be corrected to Canada, and so on and so forth. We've got, DOM rep and so on. One thing I want to show you, let me just go ahead and finish this. So let's create this knowledge base. Let's publish it to the server. Okay. So it's now published. If we open that knowledge base again for a country and then click on domain management, one thing you can do is, one thing about this is, say for example, we have DOM rep and rep of Korea. Notice that if I wanted to make corrections for these, I'd have to change, changes to Dominican Republic, and then this one to Republic of Korea. Now, both of these actually have the same word, Republic. So if you have a common term that applies to a lot of different values, and you just want to be able to correct that term, we can use what we call, term-based relations. And term-based relations allow you to correct strings within strings. So we could tell it to actually correct rep to Republic. And then if we did that, it will be smart enough to know to change all of the REPs to Republic within as a substring. So, yes. And that's pretty much it. This is, I know, a really, really simple example, but there's a lot of information here that, okay, there's a lot of information here, and I know this is just a very, very simple example, but what I really wanted to show you is where the power of DQS lies. And, the reason for KBs, or the reason that KBs were developed is because a lot of other people out there already know this information. So why are we trying to create our own database for countries when we know that somebody probably out there has this information on countries already? Why do we have to recreate our own phone database when we could probably get a database from someone out there that already knows a lot about phone numbers and could probably give us the KB for that? And this is precisely where data quality services kind of an example, because if we click on configuration here, you can see that it gives me a link to the Azure Market. And if we actually have that pulled up here, the Azure Market is where you'll find a lot of different data sets. You can find reference data sets here. You can find reference data services here, like what Melissa Data provides. Some of them will be free. Some of them, of course, are premium data, so you'd have to pay for them. The price that you're paying for and probably scales with the goodness of the data that you're getting. So, say for example, we click on maybe business and finance. Let's see what kind of data we get there. You've got banking data. You've got crime statistics for England and Wales. So you got all sorts of data here. But depending on what you need, you just click on the category that you want. For data quality services, you have, of course, info group, Melissa data. You have locate for international address validations, and so on and so forth. So let's actually take a look at how we would access the Melissa service through the through DQS. Now, if you create an account, of course, all you'd have to do is you'd have to click on one of these services. Let's say, for example, we're doing phone checking, and then you could try it for free for some records. But if you want premium amount of records, of course, you'd have to pay a certain amount. So depending on your subscription, you could certainly license that data set and then use it from within DQS. I already have my account set up here. I have all of my reference data are already in my account. So what do we need to do? The first thing we need to do, actually, let's create a new knowledge base here and call it Melissa. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the values that we need in order to validate an address, and that will be your address line. I'm going to leave all of these as default, and it should be fine. You have your city, you have your state, and then you have your zip code. Now, one thing that DQS kind of provides is what we call a composite domain. Now, composite domains allows us to associate a bunch of other domains to each other. For example, if we have an address line, and we want to be able to define what an address line is through multiple domains. And an address line for me actually means that it has an address, a city, state, and zip code. This is what composite domains kind of means. If we're talking about full names, for example, you can have a prefix, a first name, a middle name, a last name, a suffix, as 5 different domains, and then you can associate them with each other in a single composite domain and then name it a full name. So this is what I'm just doing right here. I'm creating a composite domain called address line, and I'm giving it the 4 separate domains for that, which is the address, city, state, and zip. And we'll see why this is relevant in just a second here, because through my composite domain, I can actually click on reference data and then browse my reference data providers. Now, again, I've already licensed the Melissa data services here. So when I click on browse, it'll come out of my reference data nicely. So what we can do is we can actually click on address check. So this is the address check service, and kind of tells me the schema for it. So which is why I know which domains to put in my composite domain. So we can include any of the information here in our composite domain. But basically, what we need to do is we now map in the information, our domain. There you go. Address line will be mapped to address line. So we're just going to map our domains to the RDS schema. Our city will be mapped to the city. Our state will be mapped to the state. And our zip code will be mapped to the zip. Let's delete this last one right here. Okay. So we've mapped in the RDS required schema from address checking to that composite domain that we just created. So go ahead and press OK. And then we can set our thresholds. Again, we've got our auto correction thresholds. We saw a while ago it didn't correct countries because it didn't fall in the thresholds that we set it for. So right now I'm setting it to 90%. How many suggestions do we want? Right now it's we can have a maximum of 4, and then the minimum confidence. Anything below 60% will fall off directly into our invalid. So, and that's pretty much it. I mean, we've just created the knowledge base that accesses our reference data. For Melissa data. And then we could now create our data quality project, select our Melissa knowledge base, click on next, select the input table that we're working with. I've got some addresses here, US addresses and phone numbers and so on. And then we could just quite simply map in our input information from the input database to our domain. So we're mapping our addresses, our city, our state, and our zip code. And that's pretty much it. We've got everything mapped in. Click on Start. And then from here, what it does is it takes our records and then it pushes it into the Microsoft Cloud where the Melissa data services reside. And then from there, it's able to correct the values that it needs to correct through a web service call. So we've got our profiling statistics here. We don't have any blank addresses. We've got our accuracy, 18% were suggested or new, and then 5% were actually invalid. And if we click on Next, so we can kind of see our suggested values in here. Let's expand this so we can kind of see it. We can see, Parkhurst was corrected to Parkhurst in a single word, but it was only, 73% confident in doing that. So it asks us now whether we want to approve or reject that. World Trade Drive, DR was abbreviated for drive. We've got Helix Avenue versus South Helix Avenue. So, and if we take a look at this, how did it actually know that Helix Avenue should be changed to South Helix Avenue? That is a ridiculous change, if we are talking about addresses. But the thing is, this is what the Melissa data services specialize in. We know given this address, this city, the state, and the zip code, the information you actually gave is wrong, and that it should have had a South in it. So this is kind of what I'm talking about a while ago, where why try to reinvent the wheel when it comes to addresses when we have people out there that specialize in it and who can cleanse this type of data for us in a much, much more efficient way, since they do have the experience for this. So same thing goes with the other information we have here. We have AVE Maravillas. Initially, you would think this is Avenue, but in fact, it's Avenida, which is a completely different suffix, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all of, I want to approve all of those corrections. Yes. We've got 2 invalid ones, and the good thing is we can't really assume that all the addresses that we have are going to be good. We've got, a suspiciously good-looking address here, Oak Bend Drive in San Diego, California. Unfortunately, no. Melissa data tells you that, no, this is actually not a good address. It's a fake address. And again, the reason that Melissa Data is able to know this is because they have, or they know all the valid addresses here in the U.S. They license data from the USPS or from other address companies in order to compile this database of all the addresses in the U.S. And from there they can efficiently tell you what the supposed corrections are and which addresses are actually deliverable or not based on the reference data sets that they are actually, Melissa Data is actually using. So they know that Oak Bend Drive is not a good address, and the same goes for Villa de los Rosales in Rancho Santa Fe, California. So
Joseph, I think what you're saying is just by using data quality services within SQL Server 2012, you can actually get access to the very specialized knowledge that's available through third-party reference data providers integrated into your situation or integrated into your solution without having to make major investments in terms of, financial outlay, technology, and infrastructure. You can just hook it in and then leverage it and then go from there.
Exactly, and that's precisely, the capabilities and the power that you get, with data quality services. I mean, we're really trying to push it out of the box here, and of course, it's not only the Melissa services that's out there, and this is good because address is a very common thing. I mean, every company out there will have some form of address data, but you can certainly license other information. As I've shown you a while ago, you could leverage whatever type of data that you have a need for. Some of these you might not even know is already out there, but it actually is. You've got real estate data for property information and whatnot. So yeah, this is it's a technology that you can certainly leverage other technologies out there and information that's already available. And I think cost-wise, the return of investment when we're trying to correct the information that we have is certainly worth it if we invest in it right now, especially when it comes to addresses and contact information and whatnot.
Sure. I also think that there's quite a bit of information available for free, and that's all on the Azure Data Market. Is that correct?
Yes, that is very much correct. And you get, and it's not just the Windows Azure Marketplace that you can get this data, of course, but they do offer a lot of free data. You can click here. Actually, the Melissa services, it's free for the first few months, and for this, not for the first few months, I think for the certain amount of records, it's free. Of course, you have other people who post their own information in here completely free. You've got a synonyms API. I was looking at this yesterday. This one's really cool because they give you all sorts of different synonyms, like J-Lo is actually a synonym for Jennifer Lopez, and then SeaTac is actually the same as Seattle Tacoma Airport. So things like that, they give you all sorts of different synonyms, and this is actually for free for 5,000 transactions a month. So they kind of do limit you, but this is good information here. Some of them are free, some of them are not. If you have other forms of reference data sets that you want to use that's not in the Azure Marketplace, you can certainly do that. If your company already it's already using its own RDR knowledge base, certainly you can import that into the KB and then use that as your center for correcting your data. Or if someone out there knows something about some form of data that you're and he's already published his own information about it, and yeah, feel free to use whatever information you have. But it's all about the technology that Microsoft delivers in order for to make it much easier for you to be able to do that. Is I think what they really accomplished here.
So we've talked about the stuff that's available for free, and just as an example, what would something like address matching cost from a company like Melissa Data?
The way Melissa Data licenses their subscriptions is actually take a look. If we go home, click on data, and then let's just do a search for address check. Let's see what comes out. Melissa Data address check. So they've actually tiered it into different. Depending on how much you use per month, you'd actually have to pay a certain amount of premium, which is about, 1,000 records is actually $0 per month, so that kind of comes for free. And then you've got $220 for 10,000 records. And the more you go up at the enterprise level, you got 5 million records per month, which is a really huge number. Then you, of course, have to pay a little bit more for that. But this comes with service that you're getting. I mean, this is premium address checking and address quality. And the way that it's structured right now is that the more records that you process within a certain amount of time or within a month is actually what we charge you for. And this is, if you take a look at the industry out there, if you do a little browsing, you will see that the pricing that Melissa Data provides is actually very, very generous. And one thing that we do believe in is that data quality should not cost you more than it saves you. And this is how we've kind of priced our stuff. So again, data quality should not cost you more than it saves you. So we do provide you with an ROI guarantee for all of these subscriptions.
So if I had a data warehouse and I was unsure about the quality of the data, I could leverage data quality services. I could leverage a third-party reference data provider like Melissa Data. But then let's say that I'm starting off with 5 million records, but my data warehouse customer dimension will only grow by 5 or 10,000 a month. Would I be able to first process my entire data warehouse to get a baseline of data quality, and then perhaps downgrade the subscription so that I could then maintain the data quality?
It's actually that is what is commonly being done right now, because what you typically want to do is you want to cleanse your historical database, right? Mm-hmm. And this historical database will, of course, be about, if you've got 5 million records in your historical data, sure, let's go ahead and clean that guy up. And then from then on, we only want to maybe just validate the new income addresses. So that's not going to be as much as, the first month that I did. So this is good because you're only paying for the first month that premium, and then from then on, you only pay, for the amount that you actually get, for the new records that you get. But I do want to also put it out there, or to mention that one of the best practices when it comes to addresses, and I do talk about this a lot in my presentations when it comes to contact data quality, is that information, especially contact information, changes over time. It changes a lot over time. And what I mean by it changes a lot over time is that data, first and foremost, people move. Phone numbers get deleted all the time. Phone numbers get added all the time. Same thing goes with addresses. New properties come up, new addresses come out, new rural routes, the names change, new zip codes are changed every day. And then, in a sense, essentially, over time, if we have data that just sits there, it becomes stale as we, over time it becomes stale. So the data that we have, say for example, we cleansed our data 1 year ago, it's not going to be as good anymore right now. So that is something that you continuously want to be able to maintain by reprocessing that data through address checking. So, we do recommend that maybe at least once every 1 or 2 years, you do try and re-cleanse that data, that historical data that you have, because it will become stale.
Great. Now, out of respect for everyone's time, and thank you very much. This has really been a great presentation. We've got about 7 minutes left before 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific. If there are questions for the attendees, if you could type those into the instant message section, which is directly below the list of names, the list of attendees, we can start answering your questions. Just to make sure the attendees can type into the IM section, would someone please just type in no questions? So we do have a question from Jonathan Daylac. How does this interact with master data services?
That's actually a good question, and I don't think I can answer that right now. I do know that MDS and DQS were created to be able to work with each other, but unfortunately I don't have any examples for that right now. That will be actually a very good webinar to take a look into at a different time. But I've seen a lot of webinars that talk about just this fact, the interaction between MTS and DQS, and there's actually a lot of information about this. So and I don't think we have time to cover this one right now.
Gotcha. One of the ways that I've used master data quality services in cooperation with data quality services is in matching against sets of master data and doing those corrections. The master data services add-in for Excel, oddly enough, will leverage data quality services and leverage the matching rules that are defined within data quality services. Jonathan, if this is something that you'd like as a follow-on presentation, if you could just let us know in the IM window, and we can put it on the agenda. Good deal. So look forward to a new presentation coming up, how master data services interacts with data quality services. The question is master data services available with SQL Server 2008?
No, it is not. It's only available for 2012.
Well, master data services first shipped with SQL Server 2008 R2, and it was a version 1 product. It was functional, but it was somewhat incomplete. It's been expanded in SQL Server 2012 to become a much more rich product, and then data quality services was also added in. Okay, good clarification, Seelan. Yeah, data quality services was first introduced with SQL Server 2012.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? I'd like to also mirror Tom Merrick's comment. Joseph, thank you very much for your time today and the great presentation. It is now 12:56 Eastern. If there are no further questions, just to let you know, the link session has been recorded. It will be posted on masterdata.sequelpass.org. I will be sending out an email to all of the registered attendees, putting them to a link. Also, if there are more upcoming sessions that you would be interested in, we're very interested in listening to your suggestions. Please email events@passmasterdata.onmicrosoft.com, or you can also email masterdata@sequelpass.org, and we're happy to see what we can do to accommodate the things that you'd like to see. And thank you, Tom, for posting those in the IM section. We have one more comment from Jonathan. And thank you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mark. It was a pleasure.